Super shoes on the trails. Do we need them? We see you road marathoners. You've got that super soft cushion, that carbon fiber plate, propulsive action, that extra 4% of efficiency. We want it to on the trails, and we want our shoes to give it to us. So I've got two options right here. These are super fast trail shoes. I would put these in the category of runnable speed racers, perhaps with the range for a little bit more. Maybe in the case of this shoe, we'll see how this one works out. But I'm going to be putting these two shoes head to head right here. We've got the Adidas Terrex Speed Ultra versus the PUMA, let's read that one more time, Deviate Nitro Elite Trail. This is the new contender. This shoe's been out since last year. I raced this in 50 miler. Pro athletes have been wearing this for quite some time. Crushing records in this shoe. How does this shoe stack up to this shoe? Is it just as fast? Maybe there's different scenarios for these two shoes here. We'll see. Out on the trails. So before I start off with the two trail super shoes, I'm gonna do a little bit of a control test here. I've got the Nike Vaporfly NEXT %2 here. Now I don't typically do too much road racing. I have done a few marathons over the past, say, 3 to 5 years. Definitely a bit less over the last 2 years or so. So my road super shoe options definitely outdated here. Vaporfly 4 I saw is coming out, but this is basically my probably one best option at the moment as far as a road super shoe. It's got a few marathons in it. I'm not sure, maybe 2 or 3, maybe a couple half marathons in it. But the foam still feels good. I'm sure it's not probably ideal as far as out of the box, fresh and new. You know, the Zoom X still has that crazy bouncy feel underfoot, and the carbon fiber plate is still in there, so it's still a fast shoe as far as I'm concerned, at least. So 2 days ago I did snag an entry to a little race in town here called the Race to Roby Creek. It's actually a quite famous and popular race here in Boise. They dub it, I think, the hardest or most difficult half marathon in the Northwest. I'm not sure if that particularly applies to those who are more primarily trail runners, but as far as a pseudo road, or runnable at least, half marathon, definitely got to be one of the hardest. So I am running on a portion of the course right now. I got that entry as a late entry transfer. The race sells out within minutes, and I totally spaced, forgot to register, wanted to run it, so I kind of thought maybe somebody will drop out and I'll get a transfer, which happened 2 days ago. The race is about, I think, 9 days from now. I'm trying to like gear up a little, tune up a little, decide on my shoes here. So as far as the course, I drove over here on the course. It's about a 5K lead-in on road, getting out of town. There's about, I think, a couple thousand runners that run this race, so it's a huge event here locally. So you got 5K coming out of town, going uphill. It's definitely not easy. Then after that first 5K, you hit this dirt road that I'm running on now. And for the rest of the way, you got about, I think in total, 8.7 miles of dirt, I believe, running on this section over the top of the Aldape summit and over to Roby Creek. There's a bit of, I believe the last mile or so is a road. Screaming trail downhill over the top, leg busting, quad busting for sure. And then you just gotta pound it out even on some hard asphalt to the finish line. I did run the race last year in these Vaporflies right here. It's runnable enough, certainly, for a road super shoe. The only issue I kind of had was, you can see this ground is kind of sandy. I was losing a little traction on the way up with these Vaporflies, but I think I probably gained it back in that softness, going over the top, being able to just really bomb down and have that Zoom X really take a lot of the impact load off. So this first segment here, I'm really just trying to get a feel for these shoes again. I don't think I've had them on my feet since that race last year. So that was a year ago, obviously. I'm just running the first 1.25 miles here on dirt. This is the mellower, for sure, part of this dirt section. It kicks up pretty steep, kind of moderately steep in the middle, and then there's like a 3/4 mile, 10+% kicker right to the summit. I kind of have a funky lacing setup here. Take a look at it when we get back to the truck. Also had some heel and Achilles rubbing. Had a huge blister the first marathon I ran in these. Made some mods to kind of alleviate that. This was before I figured out my felt heel pad fix, so that would probably help, but I think we'll look at the details when we get back. So I will be running up this part of the course during the race. Right now I'm running back down to change shoes, but the descent on the backside is pretty similar. It's of course steeper than this part I just ran down. Definitely rocky, rutted out channels from water draining out. Have to hop over some kind of big gaps, eroded parts and sections. So I'm gonna run a quick round in the Deviate Nitro Elite here because I feel like of the three, these are the two most comparable. And these are probably the two that I would choose for this particular race. So I wanna get, you know, kind of fresh take on that one right after having run in this Nike. Always struggled with heel lockdown in this. Did some kind of weird lacing to get a good fit on these. For some reason my right foot is worse, so I have different like odd lacing setups. 170 miles in these, all racing miles of course, plus, you know, a big portion on dirt here. Definitely shoe gooing my right foot more than my left. My landing area is getting worn. Looking at the heels, this stitching here and this flappy part, I think it was primarily the stitching, ripped up my right Achilles. So, you know, everybody has differences between their right and left foot, right and left legs. Pretty much sliced that off and it doesn't bother me. There's a huge ring inside this version of the shoe. No such lacing tricks here with this Puma. I mean, wow, perfect upper fit for me. Yes, narrow, people have mentioned that for sure, but for my foot, ideal. Like this upper on this Vaporfly, this has this weird banana shape that's kind of bothering me. I'm gonna put this one back on so I could really, I wanna feel this out for myself for the race. But this Puma upper shape on this Nike shoe, I think would be awesome. Maybe I should look into some Puma road super shoes. Not that crazy one though with the lever, or I don't know what that is. Let's see. This is Nike Zoom X. This is, let's see, Nitro Elite Nitrogen TPU here. They feel similarly poppy. I feel like the Nike feels softer. I don't know if it's gonna be better for the descent, having this big soft crash landing pad. The Puma heel is wider, so it feels pretty soft. Maybe the width plus the slightly lesser softness will be better, more stable going down. Yeah, the Vaporfly obviously focusing on forefoot landing, you know, not much width for sure under the heel. The Puma's narrow relative to trail shoes, but you know, still wider than this one. Back on the dirt road here, same section. This is of course more of a personal test for me for this specific race. So I do put chapters in all of my videos. I do not want you to waste time watching stuff that you are not interested in. So if you care more about the Puma versus Adidas segment, by all means, skip ahead to that part. I'm gonna continue on my run here in this Puma. Talk about the feel. It could also kind of be a general feeling out of trail super shoes versus road super shoes. Could be useful in that regard. It feels just as poppy, just as dynamic as that version of the Vaporfly I have. I do notice the weight, I think. Definitely feels heavier This one's 9.5 ounces. Great for a trail super shoe, of course. You saw those outsoles that I was comparing the heel with. You could also see the big difference in rubber there. I think the Nike's around 7.5 ounces. So that's about 2 ounce difference between shoes. Of course, outsole difference. Of course, 2 ounces in weight difference. You saw my outsoles on that. And that's primarily road running. 170 miles and outsoles really not in good shape. On the trails, that kind of setup is not gonna fly. Maybe unless you're a pro and you know, you get a one and done shoe. That's a different story, but I take it most of you watching this are purchasing and paying for your own shoes. I prefer the foot shape, the last of this PUMA shoe compared to the Nike. The Nike has that kind of weird like curving in, you know, of the toe. I don't know, maybe that helps efficiency. Does it? I don't know. This one feels more, you know, straight ahead. Feels like the shoe is pointing straight forward. It feels more comfortable for me. I like it better. Aside from outsole durability, outsole traction is also a big consideration if you're thinking about taking a road shoe out on the trails. On this right here, no problems. Of course, I did mention earlier, it gets steeper going up this summit. I noticed a little slippage in the sand with the Vaporfly last year. But again, I feel like that slippage is offset by the overall lightweight and speed of the shoe. So you gotta take those things into account. Of interest to this particular course, this race is in spring. It's an April race. Weather is highly variable here. Last year, I think was ideal conditions. I don't remember any moisture on the course at all, but I know in previous years, they've had hailstorms, snow, and ice covered on that summit. I think it's around 4,000 feet, a little over. The backside, once you crest the summit, is north facing, in the trees, not as generally wide open, and the snow, ice could linger there quite a bit longer. It's looking good this year though, so I'm expecting good dry or at least runnable conditions. So heading back down now, given these two shoes on foot, how they feel running back to back, if there was an issue with traction, snow, ice, as it was in prior years, I think I definitely lean towards this PUMA. It doesn't have huge lugs as far as trail running, but it does have something. The Vaporfly, that would be a tricky proposition if there was a lot of snow and ice on the trail. When I say trail, I mean dirt road like this, and in parts, chunky, rutted out dirt road. But honestly, for a lot of the faster runnable courses, especially in the American West, even a lot of the big time races, you're not running on terrain underfoot that's not much different from this. Maybe you'll get sections a little more trail type, but generally speaking, a lot of these faster races here in the US, out west, it's kind of like this. You gotta run fast. You need a shoe that can support that. I think running these two shoes back to back, I'd say it's inconclusive, leaning towards going with the Vaporfly for this particular race. Due to the weight, again, there was a 5K lead in on road, so that's part of it. And then that descent, soft Zoom X, I did do the race last year in that shoe. So if I hadn't done it, I wonder what I was thinking last year before the race. I would probably be more concerned of the stability of that narrow heel on that descent. But this year, knowing that I've actually done it and it was no problem, that kind of takes that factor out of the equation here. There's also 0 sections of actual trail in this race. So of course, that probably leads to leaning towards the road shoe. I will say this though, I am not running for a golden ticket or any kind of stuff like that in this race. It's kind of a last minute thing. Feeling fit, certainly not tuned up. I haven't done anything specific for kind of half marathon as far as running really fast. I have been training hills, generally speaking, for trails. So that being said, I may pick the PUMA because, you know, it may be not as fast. I think overall on this particular course and conditions, but it is a fun shoe. Looks cool. It'll be a good test run maybe for other stuff. So first of all, welcome back to those of you who didn't give a about Nike Road Super Shoes. Totally fine with me if you skipped ahead, by the way. I'm gonna go AB, Adidas Terrex Speed Ultra versus the Puma shoe here. I'm going to choose the left shoe here with the Adidas, again, because the heel on the Adidas I've talked about in my Q&As. Not the best, seems to bother me more in the right foot. So I am gonna put on the right shoe, or left shoe of the Adidas here, and keep the right shoe of the Puma on. Another shoe with weird lacing here. I think I have a lace lock set up here. I guess I did a lace lock. I haven't run in these shoes in a while. Heel hold. You know, look at this. This tongue is super short here also. All right. Wow, the Adidas feels, oh, way wider in the forefoot. I mean, look at that forefoot there. Because for a trail ultra shoe, so narrow, so pulled in here, and the heel, like, it legit feels like the first time I stood in these, you're gonna fall over backwards in here. The rocker here is extreme, and the softness, you know, they want you landing here, not here. You know, maybe on the descent, if you're quick off of it forward, this is really getting me. I have to do something, I don't know, maybe change the lacing. We'll see how this feels once I start running. Yeah, the Puma, the TPU is, again, still soft, but it's not as extreme of a rocker. I don't feel like I'm gonna tip over. This one really does. And I feel, I guess, the confluence, or where the energy rods kind of go through here, definitely feels like something more so in the middle of the shoe, whereas this one feels more consistent plate action here. Very noticeable under the middle of the foot in the Adidas. The Speed Ultra here is 38.30, but with that heel setup, you know, it feels high under the midfoot, but it feels almost like 4 mil, or even like negative the way you're falling back. I mean, I don't know where they come up with 8, because you're not supposed to be on the heel at all in this shoe. You're supposed to really land like this, maybe touch and go. So, I don't know. The Puma 38-32, 6 mil, feels more even. You know, this feels like a normal 6 mil drop shoe here. This one just, this is a completely different shoe. It feels like way more volume, way more softness under the forefoot of this shoe. I think it could just be that extreme width. Like you see, it's got these cutouts here, and then this part extending out, which is not connected, by the way, but it does give a sensation of kind of, you know, it adds this element of traction, at least on the forefoot area, and a sensation of a huge landing pad. Wow, I really did not expect these two shoes to feel so different. Hadn't run in the Adidas in a while. Very interesting. They're the exact same weight, 9.5 ounces, similar stack, but they really feel different underfoot. The Adidas has that striking feel of blockiness. What's the word for it? Blockiness sounds negative. I don't know. Torsional flex point. It's really, you feel it right under the center of the foot, and you feel that very wide forefoot. I'm kind of like tilted forward in that shoe. My heel is really off the ground. The Puma feels more like a kind of regular landing, even underfoot during foot strikes. Just the Adidas has a very different feel. I think it's probably the extreme rocker too. Big heel lift, big toe lift in the Adidas shoe. Puma's kind of more, you got the toe rocker. They're really banking on pop from that dynamic foam and the carbon fiber plate. Adidas Those energy rods add some stiffness. They're not a carbon fiber plate though. They're going with the levering action of those energy rods plus extreme rocker. I think right off the bat for this particular race, I'm gonna discount the Adidas. Feels more of like, it's called Speed Ultra, okay? Feels more like speed for ultras, not for an extremely all-out fast half marathon. It definitely does give the feeling that over an ultra, you can just cruise along in that shoe. Rocker's gonna help, energy rods are gonna keep you moving. If you're an efficient runner and you can stay, not up on your toes, but at least stay more forward on landings. Very efficient shoe over the long haul. I did make a quicker turnaround on this segment here. Gotta pick up an extra battery. I am gonna run up that trail there though. Up and down. See those guys biking up there. A little steeper. I don't think I need to put these two shoes through too many more dirt road miles here. Even running this more shallower descent here, I noticed in the Adidas, you still need to be forward leaning going down. And this course, it's 8.7 miles to the summit, and then the rest of the way to round out the 13.1 is down. Very steep on the backside. Your legs are beat, tired on the way up to that summit. You wanna crash on the heel, at least a little bit at times. It doesn't feel as comfortable in the Adidas. It's not gonna be as rocky or uneven where it would be dangerous, I don't think, but with the PUMA and that Vaporfly NEXT too, definitely you could get onto that heel more. Take some sting out of the steeper parts, especially closing in towards the finish over the top of the summit there. So I'm thinking this PUMA here is preferable for me for shorter, faster, all out kind of races and efforts. Adidas, again, feels like more ultra oriented. Just starting out again. Sometimes you start and stop. Gives you a good feeling, good comparison, as opposed to having run for a while with two different shoes on. It just feels efficient, very efficient. Like the feel of the Adidas, like the feel of the PUMA. I would certainly consider and probably choose the Adidas for longer ultra distances. I think that 4-foot width, the setup, having to be forward leaning, up on the midfoot, 4-foot, that works for me personally. So I don't have to worry about that part of the equation. So given the fact that it has that kind of big 4-foot crash pad, I really like that. Kind of perfect for me, for long ultras. I ran these at Scout last year, 50 mile, and they were great. It just felt like they were steady throughout that race. Didn't have any dips where my foot felt weird, or maybe they felt heavy, or I wish I had something else on. There were technical parts of that race where I wish I had a more stable shoe, for sure. But over the course of whatever that was, 9 hours, I think it balanced out and perhaps tilted in the favor of this efficient Speed Ultra here. Slight grade here. Even now, feels like the PUMA's quicker. Want to get off the ground quicker in that shoe. That wide Speed Ultra platform perhaps feels a little more sluggish going up here. I think going full out, this is probably about mile 4 of the race that I'm in right now. I'll probably be really pushing right now. I think the PUMA's just gonna get off the ground quicker. Gonna feel faster going up. There is more up than down in this race. I think it's about 400 feet net up. So some trail testing now for runnably oriented super shoes here. So the PUMA feels great going uphill. It's not as stiff as some other carbon fiber plated shoes for trail. Has some good flex to it. Does not feel at all like my heel wants to pull out of the shoe, that's a sign of good flex. You know, of course, sign of good heel hold as well. They go hand in hand. Carbon fiber plates and stiff shoes. Speed Ultra here, no slouch going uphill. Don't mean to say that it's a slow shoe. I was just talking about earlier, more quicker running, kind of all out, feeling quicker in the Puma for my race situation. But that big rocker up front, it's nice. Smooth single track here, of course, in the Speed Ultra. This is probably, you know, ideal terrain, the ideal track for this shoe. That big toe sweep works well going uphill. Just kind of rolls into the grade, helps a lot. This is not part of the race course, by the way. Right next to it though, an offshoot. Isn't it great? You could run 5K out of town, and here you are. Quick stop here to look at the uppers. I mentioned both shoes being the exact same weight for me in my sizing here. I do have a 9.5 in the Puma. I've got about maybe 2/3 of thumb's width. So this is a snugger fit than I have here. I've got this Speed Ultra, legit full thumbs width in a US 10. So I have more space in this. Again, I was considering this shoe when I was thinking about sizing as far as going, you know, ultra distances, 50 mile plus, which I've done, possibly 100 miler. This shoe, I wasn't quite sure where it was gonna land, and I also wasn't quite sure about sizing since I haven't really, you know, Puma hasn't really been in the game for a while. So decided to go true to size. And so my 9.5 here is a little tighter than my 10 here. I would say they're equivalent. Adidas has, you know, people have issues with the sizing being long and being kind of weird in different places of the shoe. Again, I don't like the heel lockdown. I have odd lacing here, and I have that little pad in the back of my right Terrex shoe. This one, you know, at 9.5 feels spot on for my foot. People have said it's narrow. I agree. This is wider across the forefoot, again in a 10, but I think, you know, given this space, if I had this in a 9.5, I'd probably be at a half, or probably about a half thumbs width in this shoe, and I still think I'd have more space. It's just, you know, they have a wider platform, so they're accommodating that there. You're narrower on the ground here. That's why I think it kind of feels poppier off the ground. You know, you're getting that, you know, more concentrated energy from the plate and the foam versus this, you know, these kind of wings here, you know, they're for, I guess, generally stability. You know, they want you to be landing on your forefoot, midfoot, and going straight ahead. These are there to kind of keep you from wobbling too much. So they do feel maybe a touch more sluggish at high speeds, you know, or high effort going uphill. No issues with the Puma fit. It feels great for me, super dialed in. I think I'm gonna probably pick this shoe in the race just because I know it'll be good for 13.1, perhaps not as fast as that Vaporfly, but it'll be fun to run in, and it'll give me a better idea of if I would want to race this, you know, potentially longer later in the year, what types of other races I might consider it for. Again, I'm not like shooting for golden tickets or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. Running for fun and to push myself, so this shoe looks fun, looks great. So I came from there, that's kind of flat. I think I'll climb up there a bit, smooth single track up to there, see how it feels going up, and more particularly going down. Check on stability comparison between those two shoes, and then just fly on back down. 3.3 miles here with one shoe on each foot, so I'll be around 6 or 7 by the end. One thing to point out, this heel part I had talked about earlier in my full review, or my first run review on Road Trail Run, potentially being high. It has not caused me an issue at all, so something I'm keeping an eye on, and I'll definitely see how that works out after a hard 13.1 miles. This, again, I don't get irritation in this shoe, but in the other shoe, it's it doesn't hold the foot in, and I get some rubbing more so on my right foot. So this is surely better heel lockdown in the Puma than the Adidas. Something they need to work on in this shoe. Again, please, Adidas. This shoe, the fit, just, I love it. It's for my foot, pretty perfect. So the race next Saturday is gonna start right by those red buildings over there, 5K up the road to that canyon road I've been running on. Head up through that canyon road. And the summit is behind this mound in the foreground. That's Lucky Peak over there. Summit, they call it a summit over here. Although, you know, typically a summit is a high point, but here they call a summit like a pass. So it's behind this mound in the foreground here. Go over the backside, down around to Roby Creek. Got a little hairy there. I'm at 4:58 right now. Probably a little quicker on that last little downhill. These are fast trail shoes. 4:49 right now. Both of these shoes are really fun to run in. A little bit of wobble there on some rocks. Couldn't tell which one was worse though. I felt like the Adidas left foot was a little more wobbly. But, you know, if you could find your footing, these two shoes are awesome. I mean, I'm going downhill here, 5:20s pace, just cruising. So much fun. Woo. Oh. So how would I look at these two shoes compared to each other? Talked about a lot of it already. Speed Ultra, certainly lean towards ultras in those. I think the Puma is gonna be quicker. Definitely has that pop, carbon fiber energy for shorter distances. For me, the fit is spot on. I feel really locked into that shoe, you know. You're up there a little bit, you know, the plate plus the bounce of the shoe, you know, that's gonna hinder stability, but the fact that for me, it fits so well, I feel like I could manage that. The Speed Ultra, the fit is, it's here and there in different places. I think most people will feel more volume in the Speed Ultra, meaning you could kind of work with it, finagle the lacing, maybe work with different socks, figure out something that's gonna work in that shoe, and it will be likely better, more efficient for longer distances. Roomier in the toe box, for sure. Assuming you get the right size and figure out the fit for you. So the Puma's narrower, more of a race fit. You know, if I had a 10 in the Puma, I wonder if the security would be the same, you know, if I'd feel as comfortable running as fast, and perhaps I might feel more comfortable running longer. I'm pegging it as a very short, fast racer at the moment, but that is kind of pending how this race goes next Saturday. I'll probably run in the Puma just because, you know, the Nike, been there, done that just last year. Feel like it would be a touch quicker, but I'd like to run the Puma. So after that race, maybe I'll see. Maybe it will feel so good that I'll feel like I could run it perhaps longer, or give me the impetus to try it at least in something longer. So that's a wrap on this ABC race shoe kind of testing here. As always, fire away in the comments, questions, comments, anything. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I have started a HumbleRunning Substack site, page, Substack. I don't know how you call that, but I've started one up, way to kind of consolidate some of the things I do, YouTube, Instagram, keep people updated on what's new in for test, what's coming up, what's released. I plan to send out a bi-weekly newsletter, so if you're interested in receiving something like that, I do have some promo codes, affiliate links from time to time. Kind of working on those, so that's something maybe I'll share if you want to be on the loop on those. A lot of these shoes, of course, $225, $230. The new Vaporfly, I believe, is $260. These, of course, here, close to $300. So if I have some ways that I can save you money, I always want to do that. So maybe sign up for that newsletter if you're interested, or not. It's totally free. You don't need an account. You don't need anything to sign up. You don't need to look at my Substack page. You'll just get an email, you know, every couple of weeks or something like that. If not, of course, like and subscribe. Loving what I'm doing here on Humble Running, getting good feedback. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. So have a good day out on the trails. And if you are racing this weekend or next weekend, as I am, good luck. Drone battery died. At least it parked itself nicely. Better than last time.